Good morning, good morning, good morning. Here I am back again from having my vacation and then teaching some workshops before we went into basically lockdown. And so I won't be teaching any more classes like that again until everything gets reestablished and kind of sorted out. It's a very unusual time. I feel when I do go outside, either the air feels really silent or there's tension, depending on where I am in relation to where I'm going. Now, this series, I'm going to be talking about tarot. Now, the interesting thing, people know that I started, at least I think they know, I started off as a tarot card reader a lot of years ago. I think over 50 now, 72. No, it's actually 64. 64, I began learning how to read. And around the early 70s, I started teaching and reading in the public. Now, what I wanted to do for this next series was talk about what exactly I have learned from these symbols. The tarot itself, there's 78 picture cards. And they're called the Unbound Book of Wisdom because when you put them together, they make all sorts of different stories. And that's the wonder of them, that you're able to really see and understand. And if you understand the symbology of what's happening in each symbol when they come together. Now, I just need to explain one more thing. I use the picture format from what's called the Rider-Waite deck or the Universal deck. When I have some in my collection actually. There were other kinds of tarot cards, and that are very ancient. And what we call the higher arcana, which is the actual spiritual journey, and then the lower arcana, which are the conditions of life. The lower arcana were not in pictures. They were just 3 swords, 2 pentacles, or coins as some people call them. There was just but there was no real pictures to them. And then in 1910, Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, who did the drawings, published the tarot with the lower arcana in pictures. What happened with that was it just opened it all up for people. And they did an incredible job. They did an absolutely incredible job of explaining how we as humans related and responded to events in our lives. And so this is what I wanted to share with you this time around, was the different suits. And first of all, we're going to start with the suits because they're the easiest, and explain how that was. And so the pictures really, Pamela Coleman Smith is actually the unsailed, excuse me, the unsailed, what do you call that? She did all the artistry work, but really Arthur Edwin Waite got more of the attention. But then that was in the days when women weren't really given their due, we'll say. So we're going to start, first of all, looking at one of the 4 suits. So we have 22 what's called the higher arcana, higher learning, the spiritual steps that you'll take through as you come to understand how your spiritual life will unfold. Then they have 4 suits. They have wands, which represent your thoughts. We have cups, which represent your feelings. We have swords, which represent the issues in life, problems in life. And then we have pentacles, which shows how we interpret this into our world. So it's all understanding it and how we can put them together. I'm not teaching how to read them. Excuse me. What I'm doing is showing what they say and how I became to look and become aware. This symbol here is the Ace of Wands. What you'll see here is a wand, which is a thought coming out of a cloud. All aces come out of clouds. And they have here a little river of life down there. There's a little river. And then on the background, there is a castle of dreams. That is because this thought that you are having is going to lead you to a dream, to a sense of purpose, a sense of direction that you want. But you're not right there yet. You're just basically having this idea. And it's a very important point, because when the idea comes in very often, like me, in the early hours of the morning, you don't particularly want to do it, or you don't want to really relate to it. But the first thing that you do when you have a new idea is this one. You're going to contemplate it. Now, what I like about the symbolism in this one, see, this one here is attached to, you see his castle. It's attached. Those are the ideas that we have that are solid. This is what we think. Now, the one over here is above the roses and lilies, and that's another symbolism that we see quite often coming through. And he's holding it as he's got a world in his hand, and he's overlooking quite a scene, actually. The scene of a lake or an ocean. It could be mountains, people's houses. Because when we have a thought, we have to contemplate it. We don't just usually just go, oh yeah, great thought, goodbye, you know. We think about it. Because for most of us, I think when we're young, it can work that way. But when we get older, you might say our memory banks are pretty full. So if we're going to contemplate a new thought, we have to remove something. We have to turn our back on the old in order to embrace something new. And that's what that number 2 does. It talks about contemplating it. Will this work? Should I do it this way? Should I do it the other way? How do I want it to make it work? And then we come to number 3. Now, I really like the energy of number 3s anyway. Number 3 energies are always creative. They're moving forward. So here we go. He is out of his castle now, standing on a sort of mountaintop. That was not really a mountaintop, a hill. And he's looking out at the ocean. He's got his hand on one wand, and that's that original wand that he had back in number 1. And he's looking out, and what you can't see very clearly here is that there are 3 boats setting out. Because there comes a point when we agree or we want to go ahead, we have to commit to putting it out to see how it works. It may not work. And that's what I like about this particular symbol, because he's putting his ideas out. He's doing the action because he's got it moving. And we don't know how it's going to end up. We do not know at all. We just know that we're now committed to doing this idea. And then, number 4. Number 4, we're celebrating. We are now at the castle that we saw in the beginning of number 1. We're there, we're celebrating, everything is good. We've achieved our goal. We've got there. Always a very nice way to do it. Achieving the goal. We can celebrate, we can move through. So basically, these 4 symbols say how we think. We have a thought, we contemplate the thought, we project the thought out, and then we celebrate it. When I say project it, we do what we got to do to get it moving. And then we celebrate it. We're able to celebrate that. But is that all we do? No, because we're humans. And because we're humans, we go to number 5. Number 5, as you will see, the 5 wands are all over the place. None of them touch the ground, meaning they're not grounded. Some of them are held by one hand. Some of them are held by 2 hands. And so this is where your mind gets all scrambled, right? And so what happens here in the scrambling of our heads and our minds, we will make things kind of complicated, and we will begin to wonder what we should do or not do, and how do we do it, etc. Right? So all of that is very, very important. So now, so what we need to do is a 6. Now all the thoughts are put in place, and the man is on a horse with the laurel wreath of victory on his head, and he's carrying a wand with the laurel wreath of victory. And everyone, all those thoughts that were all jumbled are now organized as he moves ahead to create. It's an important element. And so he's going to go ahead, and he is going to be able to move those in a direction that he wants. But being human again, so funny how we almost what would you say? Shoot ourselves in the foot? I know I've done that several times in my life. Because now we're at 7. And the 7, if you'll notice, my finger's not totally in the way. He has a boot and he has a shoe. He's on top of a hill. And the 6, if you were looking here, the 6 ones are down here going by. It doesn't have the laurel wreath of victory anymore. But what happens is, this is actually the first symbol of the defense pattern. Maybe we'll get into that later on, but not today, another day. But it's like you begin to feel unsettled. You begin to feel unsure. People say, oh, I don't know if that really is going to work. I don't know that you could really do that. I don't know, and if you're around any groups of people, they call it the naysayers. I don't know that you should do that. And so you begin to doubt yourself. You begin to doubt what you're doing. You begin to doubt. So where you were feeling in 6, really good, we're moving forward, we're going ahead, doing what we want. Now we begin to be unsure. But you know what I love about the tarot? What I love about this? Number 8 comes along. Now we've got 8 wands, all geared to land in the earth. And if you were to look very carefully, which is hard to do, I know, in a little screen, is that the backside scene is very similar to number 1. There's the castle of dreams, there's the river of life, it's all there. So in other words, it's ready to come in, and it's coming in, it's just not here yet. Now, how many times have we said very often, it's like, be patient. Everything is in action, everything is waiting to come, everything is going to be there. Just be patient. Just be patient, you will achieve it. Now, us humans are interesting beings, I'll tell you. Basically, to create, we do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all we have to do with our thinking process. But we don't do that. We make it complicated. We let other people influence us. We do all those kind of things. And this here is number 9. And as you can see, he's got 1 wand that he's hanging on to, and he's got the 8 that were in the air has now landed. Now, I sometimes interpret this a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's like you're defending, and just because he's got a bandage around his head, he's having to defend and justify his ideas of what he's wanting to create and what he's wanted to do. But that also falls into the defensive pattern, as I talked about. So the thinking is that we're not flowing easily at all in this. So we're wanting it to be a little bit easier. Excuse me. And then number 10. Well, number 10 you think would be celebration, here we are. And in a way we are, except those of you who have ever spent time looking at your mind, watching how you think. People who study with me always say, create an observer. Notice your thinking. Notice if it's your thoughts. Notice what's your thoughts and what's other people's thoughts, so that you become really aware of what you're really thinking, so you always know. Well, this here, look at this. The old saying, you can't see the wood for the trees? That's this. Over here, I'm just trying to see if I can find it. Over here, yeah, over here, there's the castle, the house. It's more of a house than a castle now, but anyway, he's close. But he can't see. Now, this to me is the worry card. Will we worry about everything? Where our mind is just so busy, and we lose sight. We lose sight that we're really quite close to what we want, because we've got so much going on in our heads. Really, basically, you can't see the wood for the trees. That's true. Worry about this, worry about that, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. So it's burdensome, because how he's carrying those thoughts really means that his journey is not easy. It's not an easy journey, but he's actually quite there. But I always feel, and I've seen this in readings, the goal is right there and they walk right by it, because they're so caught up in their minds, they don't see what's really right there. So just to reiterate, what do we got? We've got the first 4 symbols tell us this is how we're supposed to think. We have a thought. We contemplate the thought. We project the thought. Let's give it time. It's got to take time. And then we reap the reward of the thought. That's what we want. That's what we want to have happen. But then, being humans, we overthink. Then, because again, the tarot always tells you how to get out of these things. That's one of the things I really, really have appreciated over the years. It says, just get your ideas and just keep proceeding ahead. Don't be insecure. Don't let other people be insecure, carry on about it. And make sure you know and trust that it's all in process. Timing is a funny thing because there's a tendency, I should say, that we have inside of us, we want it yesterday. Why isn't it here? It should be here. And sometimes that's not exactly valid. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, I'll say, there's a big computer in the sky that has to put a lot of things in place in order for you to get what you're wanting. So you cannot afford to get defensive. You cannot afford to stop believing. You've got to trust that it will come in when it's absolutely the correct and appropriate timing. Because I find timing is one of those things. Now, I will be talking later on more about the defense symbols that we have in our tarot, which just tells us where we're defending and we're justifying the sense of who we are and what we're doing and how it all works and all of those things. But that's the wand symbology, except we have 4 more symbols. In every one of the 4 suits, which are wands, cups, swords, and pentacles, we have what's called the court cards: page, knight, queen, and king. So what are court cards? They are how you think and feel and respond the most often. Look at this one. This is the page. Look how first of all, little symbolism. He's got a little red feather in his hat. He's looking very adoringly at his sword, but he's not really seeing the full picture. He's just caught up with what's going on. So that might not be the best way of doing things. Now, when we have a look at what would you call this? The Knight of Wands. He's the doer. I always feel that this one's going to get where he's going to go because he's got a really good firm grip on his horse. And I'm not a horse person, but it feels like it's got a good grip. He's got his ideas and the horse is rearing, ready to go. And so he's putting his ideas into action. Now, knights are all on horses, and the gait of the horse is very, very important in the sense of what the knight is doing. And this one is getting ready to go ahead. So he's getting ready. Now I'm going to show you this symbol because I know this symbol very well. The Queen. Now, you've got to remember, this was published in 1910, so it was created pretty well through the end of the 18th century, coming into the 19th. So women in the court cards are maybe not as strong as they could be. So I try not to see them as male or female, but rather what are they saying? So here we have a queen sitting on her throne. And I want you to point out something here. See this wand here? It's not touching the ground. It's touching her throne. And the cat is her fears. Where is she looking? She's looking away. Now, I think this symbol will epitomize me for many, many years. I didn't always go after what I wanted because I had fears. I had fears of all sorts of little things, some big things. So what happened was I got myself sidetracked, and that's the key I gave this particular symbol. I would sidetrack myself from what I really wanted to do because I wanted it to be safe. In retrospect, when I look back, I can see that if I had really been looking and feeling confident in myself, then maybe my life would have been very, very different. Mind you, I had a good life. I'm not saying I haven't. I've had a great life. But there were times when I had opportunities come and I didn't take them because of that symbol. And I knew that symbol would come up a lot for me. And I didn't understand it at the time because I was still learning. Because next thing is the king. The king is always is very, very clear, very, very concise. He's sitting on his throne. He's looking in the same direction as his wand. His wand is attached to the earth. There's one thing I do notice with this particular symbol, which I haven't touched on really yet, and that is it can, if there's other symbols around, be a procrastinator. And sometimes he'll procrastinate because he's in his head and he's thinking. He's not necessarily doing. He's not getting up and doing. He could, but necessarily. A lot of it will depend upon what other. So the core cards talk about our attitudes as to whether they're workable, whether they work, whether they are, what would you say? They're our habits, actually. They're our habits. So what are our habits? And that's what I found helped me a lot when I began to do my self-examination, and the symbologies would come up, and I began to see what my habits were. Some of them I didn't like having, believe me, and yet it was always correct. And eventually I began to understand myself a lot more, a lot easier, and a lot better. So that is the wands. Now next week I want to go over the cups. And the cups are interesting because they're emotional. And the emotions feed the thoughts. But we have the thought first. Know that. We have the thought first. And the emotions come up around that. So I'm going to go through this because we've got, and then when we get to the higher arcana, we won't be doing so many every day because there's a lot more in the philosophy end of it. But I want you to think about your thinking. What am I thinking? What am I putting out? What am I projecting? Am I believing in my thought of what I want to do? Am I hiding? Am I not believing and trusting myself? Do I feel I have to justify to everybody what I want to do? That's quite common, actually. But I want you to just observe this week. Be an observer. Find out how it is, how things work, how you come. I will be back next Wednesday morning with the next series of this. And in the meantime, I want to wish you having this crazy time that we're in, that you stay safe, that you look after yourself really, really well. And until we meet again, bye for now.